What happened when a respected TV host tries to have a normal conversation with his guest, only to see everything spiral out of control? That's exactly what happened here. It took just 38 seconds for Jasmine Crockett to damage her own reputation and get herself kicked off one of the most watched talk shown in America. Bill Maher has been hosting his program for decades. He's seen it all: tough guests, heated debates, and plenty of controversy. He knew how to keep conversation moving, but nothing could prepare him for what a Jasmine Crockett was about to do. The studio that night looked like any other episode. The lights were bright, the audience was relaxed, waiting for thoughtful discussion and maybe a few laughs. Bill sat at his desk in a dark suit, his notes perfectly in place, his questions lined up. Everything seemed ready for a normal show. Then Jasmine Crockett walked in. She looked confident, smiled at the audience, waved politely, and shook Bill's hand before sitting across from him. Cameras rolled. The snow officially began. "Welcome back, everyone," Bill said warmly, looking straight into the camera. "Tonight, we have Jasmine Crockett, who's been making headlines for her work in politics. Jasmine, thanks for being here." "Thanks for having me, Bill," she replied, settling into her chair with a calm smile. She looked relaxed, ready for conversation. Bill started with the kind of question that usually puts guests at ease. "You have been very vocal about several issues recently. What would you say drives your passion for public service?" It was a softball, a chance of Jasmine to talk about her background, her goals, maybe something inspiring. Most guests would have smiled and said something about wanting to help people or make a difference. But Jasmine's smile faded. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "She wants to know what drives me. Bill, what drives me is people. You like sitting in comfortable studios, pretending you care about the answer to your question." The audience shifted in their seats. The mood in the studio suddenly changed. Bill looked taken back, but stayed calm. "I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I understand what you mean," he said, keeping his voice steady. "Oh, you understand exactly what I mean," Jasmine shook back. "Your media types are all the same. You invite people like me to make your show look diverse and inclusive, but you don't really care about what we have to say." Bill slowly set down his pen, looking her straight in the eyes. "Jasmine, I brought you here because I thought your views were interesting. I am genuinely interested in hearing your perspective." "Interesting," Jasmine laughed coldly. "That's rich coming from someone who built his entire career mocking people who look like me." The tension in the studio was growing thicker by the second. Audience members exchanged uneasy glances. Camera operator kept rolling, but even they seemed uncomfortable. "I think there's a misunderstanding," Bill said carefully. "I have never mocked everyone for their background. I try to treat all my guests with respect." "Respect?" Jasmine's voice rose. "Would you call this respect? Bringing me here as your token just so you can check off your diversity box." Bill took deep breaths. He had handled tough interviews before, but this was spiraling faster than everything he had seen. "Jasmine, maybe we got off on the wrong foot," he offered. "Why don't we start again? Tell me about the issue that matters most to you." But Jasmine was not interested in starting again. She was just getting started. Jasmine leaned back in her chair, her tone sharp and dripping with sarcasm. "You want to know the issue that matters most to me, Bill? How about we start with this host like you pretending to care about real problems? Why sit you in your ivory tower making jokes about everything?" Bill's jaw tightened just a little. For the first time, a hint of irritation crept into his voice. "I do care about real problems, Jasmine. That's why I do this show. That's why I bring on guests from different backgrounds to discuss important topics." "Important topics?" Jasmine suddenly stood up, catching everyone by surprise. Her voice cut through the silence. "You think this is important? Sitting here in your fancy studio, acting like politics is some kind of game. That's your idea of important?" The audience fell completely silent. Bill remained seated, though his posture stiffened. He raised his hand slightly, trying to calm the situation. "Jasmine, please sit down. Let's have a conversation like adults." "Like adults?" Jasmine's voice climbed even higher. "You want to talk like adults? Then let's talk about how you and people like you have been the problem for years." At that, Bill slowly rose from his seat. His movements were measured, controlled, but the tension was clear. "I am going to ask you once more," he said firmly. "Please sit down so we can discuss this calmly. This is my show, and I want to have a respectful conversation." "Your show?" Jasmine barked out, a bitter laugh. "That's exactly it. Your show, your rules, your way of doing things." "Well, guess what? I don't play by your rules. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Some leaned forward in disbelief. Others crossed their arms, waiting to see what would happen next. Bill glanced off camera towards his producers, silently asking for direction. Her face plenty of challenging guests before, but this was quickly moving into uncharted territory. Jasmine, I understand you feel strongly, Bill said, making one last attempt to bring things back to track. But if we can't talk respectfully, there's no point in continuing. Jasmine stepped closer to the desk, her eyes blazing. Respect. You sit there in your position of privilege, judging everyone else. And then you dare to talk about respect. You don't know the first thing about it. Bill's patience was wearing thin. His voice, though steady, carried more force now. I am not judging anyone. I am trying to have a discussion. That's the purpose of this problem. A discussion? Jasmine snapped her hands, tightening on the edge of his desk. This is not discussion. This is you trying to control the narrative, just like you always do. Security staff are now visible at the edge of the set, standing by the case thing God was. Bill noticed them and lifted his hand in a subtle signal to hold back for now. Jasmine, he said firmly, I need you to calm down. You can disagree, but it has to be respectful. But respectful was the last thing on Jasmine's mind. She leaned even closer, her voice now laced with venom. You want to know the truth, Bill? You are nothing but washed up comedian who got lucky. That's all you are. The studio gasped as if a collective slap had just landed. Even the camera operator flinched. Bill's face went pale, but his composure held. That was uncalled for. He said quietly, I have been nothing but respectful since you walked out here. Jasmine laughed again, loud, bitter, mockingly. Respectful? You call this respect? You brought me here as your little diversity prop. Your dancing monkey. That's what this is. Bill straightened his voice now sharper. I brought you here to talk about real issue. You had the chance to do that, but instead you have chosen a launched personal attacks. Personal attacks? Jasmine widened her eyes in a fake purpose. Oh, poor Bill. Did I hurt your feelings? Are you going to cry now? The audience was stunned. Some sat frozen with their mouth open. Others glanced around nervously, as if unsure whether they should stay or walk out. Bill clenched his jaw and gave one final warning. Jasmine, I am going you one last chance to sit down and have a civilized discussion. If not, I will have to ask you to leave. Ask me to leave? Jasmine shot at her, laugh echoing across the set. That's typical. The moment you can't handle the truth, you want to kick me out. That's exactly what I expected. Bill's tone grew firm. Jasmine, what do you mean by someone like me? You know exactly. She snapped. Privileged fake liberals who think they can solve the world's problem from behind our desks. I don't claim that, Bill replied. This show is about conversation. Conversation? Jasmine laughed bitterly. You talk down the people to make yourself look good. Bill finally raised his voice. I treat guests as equals. I expect the same. Equals? Jasmine moved closer. You could never understand what I go through. The studio fell silent. Security stepped into view. Jasmine, please sit down. Bill urged. We can't discuss this calmly. But Jasmine slammed her hand on the desk. Good faith. You built your career mocking people who could not fight back. That's not true. Bill shot back. I have always gone after the powerful. You only care about ratings, Jasmine shouted. Turning to the audience, is this your thoughtful discussion? People shifted uncomfortably. Some pulled out their phones to record. Bill lost patience. This audience came for conversation, not melt down, Jasmine. I am asking you to leave. Your show, your rules. She mocked. Well, not everyone plays by them anymore. Security moved in. Ma'am, please come with us. Don't touch me. She yielded. This is what happened. When you tell the truth, he silenced you. You are being removed for being disruptive, not for your opinions, Bill said firmly. My opinions are too real for your fake show. Jasmine screamed. A guards escorted her out. The audience gasped, and just like that, the interview was over. Jasmine's reputation in ruins.